Hello, girlfriends. We are having a hot topic today. We are bringing together women who are experts in their field and can help us take our next brave steps. And today we're going to be talking about health and wellness with Dr. Emily Passic. Hello, Emily. How are you?
I'm great. How are you today? Happy Halloween.
Yes, happy Halloween. Absolutely. There's this hot topic about how we age, menopause, and what are all the options that we have as women today. And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about with you. And really excited about this topic. Before we get started, though, I would love to tell the ladies just a little bit about you. And so I'm just going to read your bio here. It says Dr. Emily holds a doctorate in naturopathic medicine and a master's in, let's see if I can say this word, Ayurvedic.
Yep.
Yep. I've been practicing actually. From Bastyr University and an expertise in cellular medicine through the acclaimed SSRP Institute. She has spent time in India, learning from some of the top Ayurvedic doctors there, and brings her credentials as one of just a handful of decreed Ayurvedic medicine practitioners in Washington State to centered wellness. As a naturopathic doctor, her areas of specialty include pain management, stress management, chronic infections, physical. Let's see, I lost my spot. I mean, there's a whole handful of specialties that it looks like you can really help women take their next best steps in wellness. And as your practice is a testament to your belief that true vitality lies in the synergy between ancient wisdom and modern innovation. I love that. With every patient, Dr. Emily blends science and soul and strategy to help women look, feel, and function at their absolute best. And you have also co-founded beautydrip.co. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because we love to know all of our options in life and how to live with vitality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so welcome. That was a whole mouthful there.
Thank you. That wasn't plenty.
I think so. When women come to you? So we're talking about women, 45 plus, because that's who mostly our audience is here. What is the most common thread that you hear from them?
So that's hard because I'm going to tell you the audience that and kind of how I got into seeing women. So Centered in Wellness is a pediatric and family medicine practice. And so I'm not the pediatrician. There is a pediatrician. I treat kids for other things, injuries and whatnot, but I'm seeing the kids' moms. And so mostly all the women I see, almost all are moms, just because it's a concierge medicine clinic. And so most of these women I treat are also busy moms, some working moms, some with 4 kids, and so burnout is hardly the word to use, right? So most of what I see is women who are going through this transition of, okay, my raising kids is hard, right? And now it's raising kids and being perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal. And so that's the kind of common denominator with most of the patients that I see in my clinic. Mm-hmm. And so what they're looking for is just to feel better. And sometimes they don't even know what the word is. They just know that something has shifted and something has changed. And so they're coming to me. I'm mostly their primary doctor. It's like, what to do now? Like, what are my options? And so we have a conversation about hormones. We have a conversation about peptides. We, of course, talk about diet and exercise, right? Because I'm a naturopathic doctor. So that's in my clinic space. And then when it comes to peptides, people are generally coming with weight loss issues. And so almost always we're talking weight loss. However, there are women that don't feel great in their bodies. They're doing their hormones and they want the conversation of longevity. So that would be the other thing that we talk about a lot. And I'm really passionate about talking to people about the options for, okay, so now you're at this age where you're seeing your parents age, you're maybe taking care of your parents,
Yes.
or you saw them have a really difficult time in their later years, and you have kids and you realize there are options for me to be running around with my grandchildren.
Yeah.
So what are those options?
Yeah. So, yes, let's talk to the woman who, like you said, she's just not feeling like herself. There's just
Yeah.
something off, or maybe she's questioning herself about, oh, is this the way it has to be?
Yeah.
And this is just part of aging. I just have to accept it.
Yeah.
So you brought up hormones, peptides, longevity. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yep.
So for that woman who doesn't know anything about hormones, she's heard a little chatter, oh, I've heard about hormones. How does she even know to come to you to know that there might be some kind of option that she doesn't have to feel like this? What would you say to her?
I would say that everyone should be able to go to their doctor and say, I'm just not feeling like myself. And if the doctor says, are you in the age of perimenopause? Maybe we should test your hormones. So number one, they should know that there is medicine for this and they can go the hormone route or not, but nothing replaces hormones. And what I'm talking about is I love herbal therapies. I'm a naturopathic doctor, but no amount of taking herbs or supplements is going to replace putting the hormones back in. And so we have a lot of conversation about educating on the fact that it's not going to cause cancer. HRT does not cause cancer. It has to be prescribed for the right person, the right administration in terms of, is it oral or patch or cream? There's that's a big topic, but I think what I want people to know is that you should be able to go to your doctor and say, I don't feel great. How can you help me? And if your doctor can't do it, you find a new doctor. It doesn't mean they can't be your primary to write for your mammogram and your colonoscopy and do your annual exam. But there are people who specialize in hormones. And so, generally first we're looking at a symptom tracker, like how are you feeling? That's the first thing I start with in my practice. I don't start with lab work. I start with a symptom tracker, and it's checkbox of how do you feel? Is it hair loss? Is it weight gain? Is it mood swings? Is it vaginal dryness? Is it low sex drive? And they're checking boxes, and under that category, it will say progesterone deficiency, testosterone deficiency,
Ooh.
and then it will say estrogen excess. And so when they're checking these boxes, they can look at the sheet and say, oh, I checked 5 boxes out of 12 on the estrogen excess column. And so then we have a conversation about, okay, that's what this looks like. You've lost all your progesterone now. And then I go and run labs. And so, it's this, back and forth between the patient and the physician. And so that's kind of where I start with this conversation, if that answered your question.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, you just answered some things for me.
Yeah.
Because, I think sometimes I had some girlfriends go, oh, you should get on hormones. I'm like, well, I don't think I have any symptoms. I don't know why I would do that. Well, yeah, I was diagnosed with osteoporosis and there's brain fog. I didn't know some of these things were related to hormones or even if they were, because, you've gone through menopause, that maybe there is a different option than what that rheumatoid doctor or whatever suggested. Maybe there's some other options out there. What I think that what you said, I think that really hit me though, that I really like, because it's educational along with, kind of just a big picture of where you're at, knowing, first of all, what are all those things that could be a part of this? And then educating on what maybe that deficiency is or what that is. I really like that approach because it's really kind of, you can see the big picture. I like to see what's out there. I like to see the whole picture. And I think that's what that gives us when you have a checklist like that. Yeah. And it also validates that woman's her life and what she's going through, the feelings that she's going through, because she may be crazy.
Right, because there's so many people, docs, saying, oh, it's just aging, suck it up. We need to really, validation is key. And that there's a treatment. There's something that you can do so that you don't have to feel like this. For the whole batch of women who just didn't get hormone therapy because of the Women's Health Initiative study and everyone thinking it just causes cancer and cardiovascular disease. And so now people are starting to learn, that it's safe. The therapy is safe. It has to be done well and managed well, but nothing is going to replace hormones except for hormones. So I'm not saying it's right for everybody, but I certainly started all the hormones as they went down. So I'm on it all, because the earlier you start, the better. And we know that now.
So is it ever too late to start them?
That's a great question. And people will kind of go back and forth on this. And in terms of safety, I think it is safe to start later in life. I've started women in their 70s who have been postmenopausal for 20 years because I care about their bones, because the risk of death after a fracture in a postmenopausal woman with osteoporosis, her risk of death is about 50% within a year of a, say, hip fracture. And so nobody's talking about the fact that osteoporosis could be a death sentence if you fall. I want to replace her bone loss, and we can do that.
Yes. And you told me that when on our other conversation, I'm like, what? I had no idea. Right. And so I am taking a whole new look at my health because of our conversation.
That's great. Yes. Yeah. Because they don't know that it's an option. They think, oh, I'm died. I went through menopause when I was 50. It's like, yeah, but it's not too late. And it's not too late to feel better. People still want to have sex. I mean, people still want to feel good in their bodies. They don't want cognitive decline that is partially due to progesterone loss, right? And estrogen and testosterone. Like, you need these hormones in your brain. And so it's a choice. Like, I don't ever force anybody to do hormones, but generally people do feel better.
Yes. And so I want to, from my perspective, I kind of like to have a picture of this. So there's these hormones that you can take. There's different ways that you can take them. I heard, a patch, a pill, a pellet, all these different ways. And I think one of the key things that in our previous conversation, you also talked about having that amount monitored.
Yeah.
And then having that healthcare provider walking alongside of you to adjust that if it needs to be, whether that's the type or the amount. Is that correct?
Right. And then yes, and two things are important. What the labs show, so your total amount of testosterone, free testosterone, that matters, but it also matters how you feel. And so I wouldn't bump up a dose just to satisfy my need for the, estradiol to be between 50 and 80 or 50 and 100 if that's too much estrogen for her. So that's why, it could take you 12 months to get the right amount of estrogen, especially if you are perimenopausal and you've just started having those numbers go down and having symptoms. It's both. And that's why it's so complicated. And that's why I don't start two hormones at the same time, because if it takes you a year to get the right amount, if you're still producing and you're still making progesterone and it's doing a little bit of this throughout the month, but I'm also giving it to you, some days you're going to feel better, some days you're going to feel worse. And so they're starting to have monitoring systems where you can check urine levels of this at home. The strips are really expensive, and there are ways that we can track. I just wish that it was more like a continuous glucose monitor where we just knew what our levels were all the time. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, it's hard in perimenopause and that first year in menopause because so many things are wacky and changing all the time. Mm-hmm.
And they're probably going up and down too.
And multiple ones are fluctuating. So the reality is we can do a really good job, but it's never going to be perfect, but that wasn't like that when we were, in the years where we were, having regular periods. That also was hard on our hormones. So we're doing our best in perimenopause and menopause, but it's a lot of monitoring with the patients, how they're feeling. Because if you have too much estrogen, we call it the 4 Bs, the blues, i.e. depression, bleeding, so vaginal bleeding, bitchiness, and breast tenderness. So if I give you an estrogen patch and it is too much, or kind of the ratio between estrogen and progesterone gets too big, it's the differential. So it's the difference between your estrogen and your progesterone. If that gets too much here, you now have estrogen dominance, and that isn't good. And so we want this certain amount between estrogen and progesterone. And if we're bumping up your estrogen, but your progesterone is still down here, you're going to have estrogen dominance. It doesn't mean your total amount of estradiol is too high. It means the difference is too much. Mm-hmm. And so we have to bring the progesterone up. You see, so it's this game of like trying to make these the right ratio.
But you know what is the really comforting thing that you said is that you listen to her symptoms. She is being heard.
Yes. Yes.
And that validation
Yeah.
of how she is feeling is so comforting to know that that is even possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
great.
in
Thank
today's
you.
health system, you go in, you get your test, they read the test, this is the pill that you need, out the door you go.
Yeah.
So it's
And
almost
in my
like,
field, you know, in naturopathic medicine, that's what we all do. You know, it's just, that's like, it's hard for me to understand that that's not what all doctors do, but that's what we all do. Like naturopaths are, that's you know, we have an hour, our office visits, maybe it's a 30-minute checkup if you're checking on one thing, but they're a lot of times they're an hour. And so that's all I know how to do. And all my friends that do this medicine.
yeah, that's really important. And so then let's talk a little bit. You mentioned peptides. What are peptides? What are they? What would you even need them for?
Yeah. So this is what I like about it is it's not just the field of medicine that we call peptides. It's the field of medicine is cellular medicine. And so this is how a cell functions. And anybody that took biochemistry, like in junior high, learned about the Krebs cycle, learned what ATP was. And so in cellular medicine, you're going back to biochemistry. You know, every doc that went through medical school learned a lot of biochemistry, and that's what cellular medicine is. It's going back to the biochemistry of how a cell functions and how to make a cell function better under any circumstance, and to have it be kind of give you metabolic flexibility and just improve the cell's response to things like infections or inflammation or injury. And so peptides happen to be a great treatment, although in cellular medicine, we also talk about certain off-label drugs we might use, or herbs, or nutrients like glycine, or other amino acids. And so the field of cellular medicine is really how we use all kinds of medicine to make the cell function better, because a lot of these things are signaling agents. And so peptides are just a string of amino acids that is not long enough to be called a protein. So amino acids, little individual amino acids. Most people know that insulin is a peptide. Most people know GLP-1s are a peptide. And so they're a signaling agent. So they mimic something in your body. It goes in and it sits on a cell receptor and it mimics a chain reaction. So your body actually does the work. It doesn't force the work upon your body. And that's why peptides are so safe and work so well for so many people, because we're not putting something toxic in the body. We're not putting something in there it doesn't recognize, because your body actually makes these things. And sort of we believe that, like with GLP-1s, in some people, they might be just deficient in that. And there hasn't been research on it, but maybe they have a genetic mutation against that thing that makes that peptide in your body. So we're really just giving the body back what it already recognizes, which is why as a naturopath, I feel like, oh my God, peptides are almost as bioidentical, sort of like bioidentical progesterone or estradiol. That's about as bioidentical as we can get, because our body makes this and knows what it is.
Wow. So the great explanation of that, especially for people who, because all these things are coming up, in conversations with our girlfriends. And she's telling you of your experience, but it's like going on to Google.
Yeah.
Going on to chat with your girlfriend. So it's nice to have, I think what's really important in today's world with all this information is to getting the right information. Right. And that's why I think it's so important to go to your naturopath or, whoever it is that you see and start asking these questions. So I had a funny experience the other day. I went to my regular doctor and I mentioned something about a menopausal symptom because I kind of wanted to, because I've been, kind of
testing.
And he goes, I don't know. He goes, let's look it up. And he gets on his computer and starts looking up, because I said something, I think hot flashes.
Hot flashes.
And
interesting. Okay. And so what came out of that?
He goes, oh no, let's do a blood test and see where you're at with all your, a whole panel or whatever that is. So we are. And I just,
That's great.
Okay, well, that's at least a step, and let's see where we are. But I don't know. So, like, if you were, so what is like a first step for somebody? There's maybe this woman saying, yeah, I'm not feeling like myself. Do I have to age this way? What's a good first step for her?
Okay, so, I would go hormones first. And the reason I do hormones first is because the earlier you start, when you start losing your hormones, the better it is for your longevity and for prevention. And so, for example, estrogen, i.e. estradiol, which is what we're talking about, the protective estrogen. So hot flashes are actually not benign. They're not just uncomfortable. They're not just annoying. They don't wake you up from sleep. They actually damage the endothelium of your blood vessels. We don't want women to have hot flashes. So it's not just a symptom. Something is happening. There's like a small fire happening in your blood vessels. And so we don't want that. And so I want people to be treated earlier than later. And I'm not going to throw a million things on them at a time, right? So I'm going to start with the hormone conversation. We get all the hormones in line, and then we mix in the peptides as another strategy for longevity and feeling better. If it's weight loss, like I can get a certain amount of the way there in terms of weight loss with starting with progesterone and estrogen and testosterone. Those can all help with weight loss, but maybe they're not going to do all of it. Maybe this woman wants to lose 60 pounds, and maybe we can get 20 pounds there with hormones, and the other 40 will come off with GLP-1s, for example. If it's muscle mass, we'll do our hormones. We might prioritize testosterone first. If it's like she just feels like her muscles don't get strong and she's working out, going to the gym, putting in the effort, we might prioritize like looking at the testosterone, putting that in, and then putting in a growth hormone peptide that helps you to build muscle. And so as long as she knows her goals and what that is, and a lot of women do that. They come and I say, what are your goals, right? So we're starting with what are your goals? I also care about the labs. She cares how she looks in the mirror. We're going to meet in the middle and say, what should we do first? What is going to protect you? And she may not know what is protective until I do this educational piece.
I love this approach. So girls, first of all, just take note on your little phone notes or whatever. What are some of the symptoms that you're noticing? Is it brain fog? Just kind of take note of what is happening with your body. And then what are your goals? I love that because a year ago did not think that I could gain muscle mass or be as healthy as I am today. And just with this education and some of these other things, I'm like, I can now have a goal.
Yes, absolutely.
Not just surviving, I can have something that I can achieve. I am in better shape today than I have probably been in quite a few years because
Absolutely.
I've added some of these things in and working out consistently. It's some of this consistency that helps.
And we deserve to feel our best at whatever age we're at. That is a fact. You do not have to age with your age.
Oh, I like that.
I mean, it's really true because we have the tools now, we have the research, we have educated providers, and it's all about this conversation. And again, if your doctor can't do it, you just keep looking until you find someone. Talk to all your friends. Take it to the internet to look for somebody who does hormones and peptides. And I think the mix of these two things is what's going to get us there with what we have in terms of medicine right now.
Yes. So as we kind of start closing up here, one of the things you said is find a provider that can help you. So I know a lot of women are probably going, well, here, this is my insurance. This is what, I have to go to this doctor. Well, those doctors, if they're not answering that, how should they be looking? What's that? How do they find somebody?
That's a great question. And I kind of wish my answer was to go to menopaussociety.org. But if I'm being honest, if I can be as honest as possible, not all menopause doctors from Menopause Society are up to date on the new research from my experience.
Okay.
And so you go and you see, somebody, if you have a friend who's on hormones, you start with your network. the naturopathic physicians database, there's naturopaths in every state. We are not licensed in every state. I think we're licensed in 30 some states. But that would be a place to start, because a lot of naturopaths do hormones, functional medicine, a lot of functional medicine doctors. And I don't know A4M and IFM are the two ones. So A4M will have, you can find an A4M practitioner, and then IFM is the Institute of Functional Medicine. So these are MDs that are trained in a lot of the stuff that naturopaths are trained in after they get their MD. And so they get trained in herbs, bioidentical hormones, some of them peptides. So those are the two ways to go from the MD standpoint. And then the naturopathic standpoint, we have a database as well, which I can give you the link.
Great information. We'll get this all, girls. We'll get it all to you. We'll put it in our resources. So tell me, how does Beauty Co. play into all of this? How can women access that, or what does that provide?
So Beauty Drip is
Beauty Drip.
Yeah, that's okay. Beauty Drip is a luxury beauty and wellness company that does peptide products, but we don't offer 100 peptides, because people can go to a website and go, it's 100 products. Like, I don't know what to, it's like a curated line of peptides specifically for beauty and wellness and weight loss, things that produce collagen and elastin, build muscle, lean mass. And then we have a line of peptides, a line of supplements that are also sort of curated for, women. I created the line. So it's really custom made supplements for people who are kind of sidekick supplements for people doing peptides for weight loss, for healthier digestion, for overall balance. I really do believe that 90 to 95% of disease starts in the gut. So there's a lot of gut healing supplements. You really can't get the job done for health without the gut being your primary focus. And so, we have this line of peptides and supplements that is really hand-picked, and that's why it's not a million products. But everything in peptide land with us comes with a consult with me that is like 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, to do exactly what we just did, which was, I'm not going to tell you need a peptide if really what you need is a hormone first. So people generally come, they purchase a product online, and then they get a consultation with me. And if they want to change their mind after for a different peptide, they can do that. But we have this whole conversation to make sure that the peptide is safe, to talk about the dosing, if there's any supplement that they need, because maybe they are starting a GLP-1 and they have constipation. I say, you can't start a GLP-1 with constipation. We have to treat that at the very beginning, because that could get you in trouble if that's not treated. So I essentially walk them through the whole process. They can text me every single day if they want to. I don't really love them, but they have access to me 7 days a week to answer their questions, because that is what women need. They need a little lifeline with their treatment that they're doing, especially if it's an injection at home with a substance that they've never used before. And so I'm kind of there to help them, walk them through starting a GLP-1 if that's it, because that's the biggest one, where it's a process. It's not just take this supplement every day and eventually your hair will be, more full. It's not that. It's a lifestyle. It's a diet. It's talking about alcohol intake or lack thereof. I mean, there's really important safety things with GLP-1s. And so I'm there to help them through that whole process, because that might be 2 or 3 months of us talking about the dosing before they get to their kind of magical dose and they've kind of figured it out on their own. And so, we have this concierge level care with the peptides, which is kind of what I believe all peptide companies should have. And because I work in a concierge clinic in person, all I know how to do is concierge medicine to help people through every step.
Wow. I love this. This is such a great conversation. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
coming. Because, I think some of the things that I got out of this today too is that, there's a recipe for everybody, and we don't have to take what is, it can be different. We can create this life. Like you said, we deserve to feel great.
Yes, we do.
And especially as we live longer, let's live our best.
Yeah, Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, and that there's a lifeline out there for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So we do feel seen and heard, and that there's options, and to have somebody explain the options. And you did such a beautiful job of that, and explaining what these different things are. And I have a million other questions, but I'll come talk to you personally
Of course. Of
on
course.
that and
Thank
see what
you.
we. And but the other thing that I think I just really love too is that checklist. And like even you mentioned about your gut too,
Yeah.
how that plays into it. So that's one of my check marks there.
All right.
I'm noticing what could be better, if you will. So as we close out, what would you like women to walk away with?
On the peptide front, and I said this at the women's symposium, but I want women to not feel shame for wanting to feel their best. And if that's losing 5 pounds or 50 pounds, I want to take and remove all of the shame from that conversation, because we deserve to feel our best every single day, and we need to take our power back.
Amen. Yes, absolutely. And you know what? Nobody has really ever said that. I haven't heard that. Because yes, I think you even had everyone, like raise their hand, and it's
I did.
And I'm on the GLP-1, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to raise my hand. I could feel that shame, like, oh, I couldn't do it on my own.
But look at all the women who were raising their hands and saying, we're doing this together.
Yeah. Yeah. And by doing that, I have now been able to work out. Inflammation is gone. There's been so many benefits beyond what I could have imagined. Yeah. And so, yes, as long as, we're asking questions and understanding and educating and all these things. So Dr. Emily, thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. Well, ladies, we will share any of the links and that in our show notes. And thank you again. So ladies, you deserve to feel your very best, and come take some brave steps with us. We'll see you next time.